Again, I say it every time, thank you, Dan, for all the work that you do on this, man.
That's cool, man.
It's fucking wicked. Yeah.
I'm the opposite. I take it for granted. It's easy. It takes like 2 minutes. That's what you get sort of praise for.
You're the real hero, aren't you, Al?
I'd like to think so.
Are we all recording?
Yep, ready to go. It's going to be a hot one.
No, it's fucking freezing, man. Funketeers, it's time for another episode of the Cacophony Sessions. My name is Dan, and I'll be the host of tonight's episode, our rundown of the top 20 songs of 1991. It's been 30 years since these bangers, so we thought we should examine it a bit deeper. Here to represent for their respective song nominations, as usual, are Alex.
Hello. Oh, I'll do it now, don't I? Right. Well, hope you like cheesy pickup lines, because if you were a fruit, you'd be a fine apple.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Oh, no.
Nice. Blind date special. Nice. Laura.
Tom?
Hi, I've temporarily run out of James May quotes, so tune in next time where we'll pick some other famous person.
Dave?
I'll quote Chub Rock in a 1991 special, Robocop last year was a shock.
And Martyn?
Hi, my name's Martyn, and as you know, I've got my cult and we do seances, and Baphomet still remains elusive, but I channeled Chris Cornell the other day and he's got a message for Elle, and his words were...
I regret everything.
Elle, I've been listening to, with interest in your opinions on Soundgarden. Think you should just stick to Shed Rock.
I think I will. I'll stay in my shed where it's safe.
This is supposed to be one-liners.
Right.
Look, if we're going to talk about Soundgarden and how rubbish they are, we can go long on this if you want.
Spoiler alert. The way this is going to work is that we've all nominated our own 30 personal favourites, and then all 150 songs have been scored out of 10. This list is based around the totals. It's not exactly the same as the one that we'll be posting on the blog, as we have restricted it to one song per artist in the top 20. However, the full playlists will be available on Spotify and Apple Music when this goes live. So if you do want to listen along, maybe it'd be like listening to the radio and taping off that in the old days. Give that a go. Before we do, let's find out what everyone's been doing, shall we?
Yeah.
I know that line, do. I might use that in my own personal life.
Al, what have you been doing?
I've been listening to fucking music. As usual, I left my homework a little bit too late, because I've just been watching endless Netflix whilst working, and I've just smashed about 13 hours of music in 2 days. So I cannot deal with any more 90s music for the next 6 months. I might have listened to like Limp Bizkit on repeat just to get out of my system.
You have got a list from our chat earlier, haven't you?
I do have a list, yeah. I've also got a friend who's recommended loads of thrash bands I haven't got around to listening to. So I'll be doing that probably tomorrow. But yeah, that's it really. I mean, I haven't played any more of my electric drum kit because I'm way too into Warhammer right now. So I've spent most of my days painting before work. So if anyone wants me to talk more about that, I certainly can.
Dave, what have you been up to?
So I did some more boring electronics this week and restored my Sharp linear tracking double-sided upright Patrick Bateman edition. So that was good fun. And I got that up and running. I've bought 2 more records. I bought The Shames' new release. And I bought an album by Future Utopia, 12 Questions, which is an album which has been released this month. It features a rapper I really like at the moment called Koji Radical, and Idris Elba and DJ Shadow. But it's nice. I'll fill you in. I've only listened to one track on the radio. It was enough for me to buy the album, so it should turn up in a few days, and I'll let you know next time. But yeah, I think it's going to be a nice one.
Tom, what have you been doing?
Well, we had to listen to 11 hours of playlist. I'd finished yesterday, and so today was Valentine's Day, so I started going on a bit of a nostalgia trip. So I listened to Vex Red, Glassjaw, At the Drive-In, and a few other acts like that. So I had a bit of that, and then. Because what else do you do when you're on your own? I started recording an electronica album. which I sent Martyn's heard it already, and it's
very good.
coming together slowly. It may appear as some of the music between sections in this podcast. So if you're wondering what it is, it should be available sometime this year.
I haven't yet vetted it for expletives and
no
misogyny. We'll have to see, Tom, but yeah.
Yeah, it might.
It might make the cut. Martyn, what have you been doing?
Well, the cult's going well. Again, like I said a minute ago, Baphomet remains elusive, but we will get him one day. We've still got the church booked every Sunday. But What
about Nyarlathotep?
Oh yeah, he's a great one, man. He came round one time, but
isn't that a
he left
shampoo?
Fucking legend.
He's a big drinker. Can't get him on the prosecco. He's a nightmare.
He is. He keeps leaving the toilet seat up, and he doesn't wash his cups of tea. Like he makes a cup of tea, leaves a mess. Fucking bastard. I impulse bought the first 3 Elbow albums on vinyl, which I'm glad I did. I was just on Facebook and it came up, and they just re-released their stuff. Yeah, so Baphomet, if you're listening to this, come join the party, man.
I forgot to mention that I wrote an article.
You have indeed, which will be published on the blog by the time this is up. So please go and read that. It is an introduction to post-rock.
I can't think of anything I want to read less. I even talk about post-rock for like hours on end already. To go with like an in-depth review, I couldn't do it.
It's quite brief. So what I did was I picked post-rock was invented as a genre. Well, the term was coined in 94. So I've just picked the best album from each year since 94. It took a very long time to write, but
thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Mostly because I had to listen to all the albums again, and I really enjoyed it. And there's some on there that will surprise you.
I am joking, everyone. You should read it. I just won't.
I've read it. It is post-rock isn't really something I'm that knowledgeable about, but it's definitely given me a stepping stone pathway into post-rock. I like a lot of early post-rock anyway. I mean, some of the songs that will potentially come up tonight, potentially not, because we don't know what the top 20 are. Well, I do, but everyone else doesn't.
I, for one, will look forward to reading it, Tom, because some of us have created some content for the blog, me included. It hasn't been uploaded yet, so when that happens, I'm sure everyone will enjoy it.
We will also be posting links to your Mixcloud so that you can share the bangage with us.
Oh, I forgot to mention, I coined that today for a lot of Tom and mine's music. I'm now referring to it as cloud rock, so it all sounds like it's just like barely any drum beat and just like really just airy sort of vocals of, I'm gonna do this with a rock beat, with a rock guitar underneath. That's like half of them rock. It's just cloud rock. It just sounds.
Those famous rock beats. They're always doing them, those guys.
This is the point where I wanted to say that after giving Paul McCartney a kicking in 2020 on the podcast, I've decided that I'm going to try and go back and listen to a lot more Paul McCartney, just fill in some of the blanks that I've got. And by and large, I think I'm still correct in that everything he put out after 1980 isn't really worth anything. But the new album does have a couple of good songs on it. The first 2 tracks are good. The first one's mainly instrumental, and I think that's possibly why I like it. I don't think his voice has aged well. However, there's some good songs amongst the material on that album. And Paul McCartney 2 is a new wave synth pop masterpiece, I think. I really like it. I almost wanted to say sorry to Paul for how we treated him on the podcast. I will be more open to Paul McCartney in the future, but stay the hell away from Michael Jackson unless it's say.
I'm 100% just going to take your word for that, because I'm not going to try Paul McCartney. I'm done.
What about his sick Meat-Free Mondays reggae-based career, which obviously hit everyone after
that's
sting.
after 1980, so it's in under questionable status. But pre-1980, some great songs, more so than I thought, because I previously only really liked Band on the Run. But there's better songs out there. Maybe I'm Amazed is a classic. But yeah, McCartney 2, Temporary Secretary. What a tune that is. What we're here for is to talk about the top 20 songs of 1991. We don't know what these songs are. They are based off our total scores. So there will be some surprises. Each song, we have a one song per artist limit in this top 20. So it will differ to what you're reading from, or if you're reading it on the list posted on the blog, or from one of the playlists that you're following. But we'll kick off things in 20th position with a total of 39.7. Is Only Shallow by My Bloody Valentine.
Oh, fuck yes, man.
From the album Loveless. Martyn, this was not one of your picks, actually. This was Tom's pick.
Yeah.
No, I'll fight you, Tom. I'll fight you. Just not the face. Not the face.
Tell us why this is in the top 20 tracks of 1991.
The thing for me is, like, I got into My Bloody Valentine late, because in 1991, I turned 4. So there were a few records I actually bought in 91, because I was very into buying records, more because of what vinyl looked like. But this track I got into when I was at university. I mean, the guitar sound on the intro, nothing else sounds like it. I mean, lots of people have tried, but even today, no one sounds quite like it.
It's very abrasive.
Yeah, it's really heavy without being metal. And I really like Belinda Butcher's vocals. And I think the reason why this track stands up so well from My Bloody Valentine's catalogue is that big guitar sound. It's that simple A, B, A, B, A, B structure where it goes big guitar sound, like vocal driven verse with a nice wash of guitar, and then it kicks in again. And I think it's the most immediate My Bloody Valentine ever sounded. And I love how they sound. Like, they spent a lot of time carefully curating their guitar sound. So the guitar sound's been really carefully curated, and on this particular track, it's been used in a way that works in a conventional song format.
This record's a shocker to get on vinyl as well. And didn't you have a horror story, Mark, with it?
I have it, man. Yeah, I had to pre-order it, and it cost me a lot of money to get. And what happened was, a few years back, MBV remastered both Loveless and Isn't Anything from the original tapes. So it was as if it was a first pressing, basically. And I bought it, and it took about 8-9 months to come through, and it came through the post, and I was like, fuck. I was hugging a piece of vinyl. But I had like this cleaning kit with this brush, and I was going to put it on, and I just run the brush across, but there's this sharp edge on the brush, and there's a scratch right down. And guess what song? Only Shallow. My favourite My Bloody Valentine song.
Does it skip on that scratch as well?
It still sounds perfect, but it's there.
No,
so
that's all right. Then.
Even though like it's my copy is almost mint, I know the scratch is there, so it's like vexes me.
Well, it's only your copy. It doesn't affect the audio.
No, the audio is still complete. I see it every time I put the record on, which is not that often, because I don't want to fuck it up, but it is one of my most treasured possessions, to be honest with you. I mean, like, looking at it from an aesthetic point of view, to have the Loveless, album cover there in your vinyl collection, anybody who knows
I'd love to have it. I just don't have the money.
Yeah, it's fucking, I'm so proud of it. But like, the song itself, like I said, it's my favourite MBV song, and MBV is in my top 5 bands of all time. I remember when I first heard Loveless, was late in the day. I was into shoegaze, but Loveless was one of the last albums I bought in the big shoegaze bands like, Ride and Early Verve and all that. And I remember putting it on. I bought it on CD, put it on, and I was like, what the fuck is this? Is it broken? I was like, literally, is it broken? Because it was just so otherworldly. But I listened to it, the first track, about 2 or 3 times, and suddenly I got it. And it is the verse parts. I mean, the noisy sort of like, that's all straightforward, but it's the verse parts that are the beauty of it, because it just goes in this whole in and out of phase thing. Now, one of the things that Kevin Shields did was he wanted to recreate with sound that feeling you get where, when you're deep in a dream, asleep, and then you wake up, but you're kind of in that in between waking and asleep. The outside world is having an influence on what's happening in your sleep. There's a name for it, and I can't remember. But
lucid dreams.
Lucid,
that kind of thing. And he wanted to create it, and that's where the whole whammy bar thing. You know, he plays with the whammy bar all the time, and it's just fucking like it's the chords in that verse. They're just so thick. They're just so wide, and like they're so dense. It's like almost like you're swimming in the song. And when I saw them live, I saw them in 2008 as part of their reunion tour. And they opened with Only Shallow, and I fucking cried my eyes out because they sounded as good live as they do on record. It was like the guitar tones they were getting live were pretty much exactly what's on the record, and I was surprised by that because usually you don't get that, especially with a band that has, a sound that is so dense in production and dense in effects and things. And it was just like... Yeah, it was like diving into a Marshall stack and like swimming around in the noise of the guitar. And I was just, it brought tears to my eyes, man. But yeah, Only Shallow, for me, I think should be kind of up there in the top 3, but it's in the top 20 and I'm happy about that.
Al really, really wants to say something.
Oh, I agree with Martyn. It's not completely awful. I'm sorry, I just don't get this band. It's like maybe it's what you said. You listened to it like 3 or 4 times and got it, but I just didn't get it. I just thought the riffs were kind of all right, and I really didn't like the vocals and what vocals were there. It was so low in the mix, you can't hear what they said anyway. It's just I don't know. You might as well just have someone just mumbling over. I don't know. I don't want to go into detail about why I hate it because there isn't really detail. I just don't like it. It's not my sort of music. Well, what's the Martyn quote? It's just not for me.
Not for you.
It's just not for me.
Might as well kick off the first catchphrase.
It's not aimed at you, Al. It's not aimed at you.
It's not aimed at me. It's not aimed at me. I've talked to Tom about this a lot because, like, I'm not a big shoegaze fan. I don't like the layers of sound rock music where it's like that. I'm a meat potato thrash guy. I just like a cool riff, preferably a quicker drum beat. So like if I listen to just like music like that, it just makes me sad. Not because it's supposed to, just because I find it really dull. Like I don't know how you listen to the whole album about stuff.
Alex, I absolutely respect your opinion. You know, I totally get it. It's one of those things where, like, when I was back in my thrash days, like in the really early 90s, because I didn't hear MBV till later, and I was listening to like Anthrax and Megadeth and stuff like that, I probably would have listened to Loveless and gone, what is this shit? You know what I mean? I probably would have done. I would have been like, I don't get it, I don't understand it. So I really respect your opinion on that.
A lot of sort of ambient rock and post-rock, it kind of got broken for me because I've got a friend called James, Tom, well, you guys know him. He was really into a band called Anathema because he went through like a doom metal phase and he got into Anathema, which started off as doom metal, but then he kind of went to like sort of post-rock, sort of shoegaze. And once you realise on most shoegaze songs, if you go to the start of the song, it's really quiet, and if you go right to the end of the song, it's really loud. So like the entire trick of that genre of music is to start off quiet and gradually get really, really loud with like 20 pedals going off at once. So then everyone goes, yeah, man, that's how it is. It gets really deep in that, but it's just really formulaic. It's not that clever.
Well, only 20 pedals. I've usually got about 45 on the go. No, massive respect to that opinion. And I know exactly where you're coming from. Shoegaze is a very difficult genre to really love because it is challenging in the sense that it doesn't give you a song, it doesn't give you a hook. It's all about just the sonic experience. And like, I totally understand where you're coming from. I've been a thrash metal fan, you know, and I know what it's like to love that whole structure of like the riffs just fitting and everything kind of like being quite easy to grasp onto. But with shoegaze, you can't grasp onto anything. It's almost like trying to hold some air or something. It's just so I totally get where you're coming from, man.
I really like the song. I think it's an audio representation of the opening credits of Forrest Gump. It's like a feather floating. It's like a feather floating through the wind, but its course being changed by bumping into obstacles. It's got this dreamy feel to it, which is quickly dissipated by
the
that.
Carrier bag in American Beauty.
Yeah, a bit like that. It's got this really cutting guitar line that really helps direct the song in an abstract way, I think. It's really difficult to put into words, but yeah, it's a great song. I really enjoyed it. I have listened to Loveless all the way through, and it is the opening track, and I think it is my favourite of the songs on Loveless. I think it starts at its best point. I do want to move on, because we do have 20 songs to cover tonight. In 19th position is one of Martyn's picks, with a total of 39.8. It is Little Fluffy Clouds by The Orb.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
Oh, that was a
The
good
only reason
song.
I
like
didn't
that
pick
one.
it because I knew Martyn was going to pick it.
I knew you'd
Fucking
love it,
banger.
Dave. Yeah, it is a fucking banger. It's just, it's otherworldly, and I was a massive, massive Orb fan. Like, it was Blue Room got me into the Orb. Yar Wobble's bass line, just unbelievable. But yeah, Little Fluffy Clouds got a lot of airplay in '91. It became a hit, and it got played on Radio 1, daytime radio. So I'd be working. I was doing my apprenticeship at the time in a dockyard, and I'd be walking through like the workshops, and you'd hear it kind of like blasting out really loud. It's just fucking so simple but so good. And
I think
it's
the
not very
media
long.
and everybody realised that acid house and that kind of rave culture was going on, and it was one of the few tracks that your layman could understand, because it was like on the chilled end of things, and was like obviously production sonically amazing.
Yeah, incredible.
It was able to cross over a little bit, and I think it was almost the same reason a lot of trip hop kind of got over to the mainstream as well, because it was like less aggressive and less in your face. It was able to cross over a little bit more easier because it was an easier pill to swallow. So the same reason like 07 and Portishead and people like that did quite well.
You look at who what they're sampling in this is amazing. So, like, a large part of it's actually based on the Steve Reich track. Obviously, so I like that straight
All
away.
of this would have gone over my head, so please indulge me.
Yeah,
We've heard
Steve
Steve Reich mentioned a few times.
So the on this track, what the Orb are doing, which is really clever, is they're taking loads and loads and loads of samples. So their drum samples come from Jim Gordon and Harry Nilsson. They've got the harmonica sample coming from Ennio Morricone.
Maybe we should restart
Your dog
you
doesn't
talking
agree.
about
He
this when the dog
thinks it's
stops.
We should have clarified your dog is not in pain.
No, he's not in pain. He wants me to play with him, and I'm busy.
The dog loves the Orb.
Shut up and put on some Stormzy.
No, so so where was I? So this track samples Ennio Morricone. There's the spoken word interview with the American singer. Drum samples from Harry Nilsson and Jim Gordon, Steve Reich. They've taken all these different bits and put them together, and that's the fact they've managed to turn that into something cohesive that's still quite pretty is really impressive. So as a sort of a compositional thing, it's a really impressive piece of music.
And Ricky Lee Jones's sample of the spoken word thing is just a wonderful thing to do. I think like I heard a song by a guy called King of Woolworths, and it's called the Stalker Song, and it's basically like Dave knows it, right? And it's basically like a sample of like a 999 call of a woman calling not 911 in America, and she's got someone breaking into her house, like a stalker, and it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And that really kind of like made me realize how cool it is to like make a piece of music, just an ambient piece of music, but with some kind of really interesting kind of like an interview or just a spoken word thing in there that just adds something to it. And the Orb did that
hip hop,
really well.
that genre we all love and everyone thinks is the best thing in the world, often does it with skits and commentary from the community.
I mean, Dave was saying earlier it's easier for the layman to latch onto, and as a self-proclaimed layman in this sort of music, it's exactly. It's not with what Martyn was saying about just if you have any dance music like that, but if you just put some talking, it's something to latch onto. Like I used to call it my hangover song at uni. I used to love that Baz Luhrmann Sunscreen.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I love that song. It's quite inspirational on a hangover when you need it. but it's just some guy talking, isn't it? But with the music underneath it, it just makes it incredibly listenable. And every time they bring it back, like about the clouds, you go, oh, it's almost like the chorus again. You know, I really surprised. I really, really liked it. Yeah, it's a good song.
So that means it must be Dan who didn't like it.
Well, it was okay.
because to only come 19th, because I know I scored it high, and I know that I scored
a
it
detective
very
with the
high.
scores every time, Tom.
Yeah, and then I know that Martyn and Dave would have scored it
weaseling
high.
out where
So I know
people
somebody's marked it low.
The Columbo of the scoring episode.
Well, one last thing. I did score a 5.7. I did score a 5.7. I have downloaded the album that it's from, the Orb's Adventures Beyond the Ultra World, which sounds very interesting. It was okay. I think it was surrounded by better songs in the playlist in which I listened it to. So yeah, it was great. But in terms of it's clever. It mashes a lot of different sound bites in a very structured way and achieves what it sets to do. It's just not my favourite dance song on this list. I couldn't possibly give it a higher.
That's the good thing about this list, isn't it? We don't need to really give a reason why we gave it a low score. It's just, I didn't like it as much. Like, that's what you need, isn't it? I can appreciate it's quite good and why you guys like it, but...
Let's not pretend that you can really talk about music objectively. It's impossible. So it's always going to be subjective, and we found that a lot of us found this out the hard way. I'd
like to say I'm completely objective. I think my track record speak for itself.
You are always right, Al. I don't know how you do it, but it's every time.
It's incredible, isn't it? It's actually amazing how I managed to do it. After all this time, just to be consistently right, it's difficult.
We will see. In 18th position is one of Tom's picks. This one's got a total of 40.1, and it is What You Do to Me by Teenage Fan Club.
How on earth did this make the list?
It's a really good song.
I really like this band, man.
It's power pop. You've got me at power pop.
Yeah, I mean, Teenage Fan Club are a band that I've loved for years, like, because they make the sort of music that we all wish that Paul McCartney made, you know? It's like, it's perfectly blends Paul McCartney and Cheap Trick in this particular song.
That's a really good way of putting it.
Yeah, I mean, it's Teenage Fan Club. There's two main songwriters. I've forgotten his name. It's Norman something wrote this one, who writes I prefer his tracks because the two of them write all the tracks. But this album they released in 91.
Norman Blake.
It's a great record. Norman Blake, yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that fact has been checked.
Yeah. Hey, at least I remembered he was called Norman. Yeah, he writes. He's the songwriter who writes the tracks I like more. They've consistently released good albums through their career. Nice, happy pop songs. They're great. They're Scottish, I think, indie band, and yeah, just brilliant. And I am amazed that this made the list. But it's a perfect 2-minute pop song.
I liked it because it sounded like Status Quo.
It's a bit like a early 90s Status Quo. It's got a bit more oomph to it than a Status Quo record, though, I think.
I don't think they'd be happy with that.
Can I just say also...
sucks to be that, man.
Also, guys, Tom will appreciate this. It's also the second track that is on Creation Records.
Oh, yeah, it is, actually. Yeah, that's right.
Who have a documentary coming out, by the way. So, yeah, I love Teenage Fan Club. It's just that whole jangly indie Creation Records... You know, it takes you back to the 90s, just a really nice melody that you can hold on to. And it just, the whole song just sounds like a big warm hug. It's one of those things where if I'm on a mad hangover and I'm going to work and I'm really not wanting to go to work and I'm feeling a little bit depressed, it was what, if it came on, I'd just be like, fucking hell. And do you know what it actually did? About a week ago, I was listening to Six Music and in the morning I was getting ready for work and it came on and I was just like, man, I fucking forgot about this band. And like, yeah, I got into that whole like early 90s jangly indie thing for a little bit and it just cheered me up. It's just, yeah, I'm so glad it made the top 20.
It's just very likeable, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think
that's likeable.
I mean, I'm glad it made the top 20, but of all my picks, it's one of the ones I thought was least likely to.
I haven't really delved into Teenage Fan Club very, very much. This is my kind of, I've got the album that it's from.
Bandwagon-esque?
Yeah, bandwagon-esque, yeah. I think I might quite like that. It reminds me of a bit of what the 1975 are doing at the moment. There's or maybe a bit of early 80s Duran Duran.
I'd say Teenage Fan Club's albums are consistently brilliant.
Yes, they are.
They've released God knows how many now. Every couple of years there's a new one, and they are superb. Like, they're a band worth delving into their back catalogue if you want the musical equivalent of diabetes at the end of the day.
I'll definitely be checking them out. One of my picks is up next. We have, with a total of 40.4, we have Mr. Dobelina by Del Funky Homo Sapien.
Oh, this song was good.
Would have picked it myself, but I'll let you do it.
Yeah, it's a great hip hop song. I've loved Del the Funky Homo Sapien since I discovered his track. What's it called? You Better Watch Your Ass, from the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 soundtrack. Always liked Del the Funky Homo Sapien. He's Ice Cube's cousin, as Martin's probably gagging to say, because you always say...
I was fucking gagging to say that, yeah.
He was on the edge of his seat with that.
Yeah, he's Ice Cube's cousin. He's got a really different kind of almost comedy vibe to him as a rapper, but he gets away with it because it's... his delivery's so good. It's so unusual. It's got a bit of the kind of ODB unusual cadence to it. And yeah, I really like Del the Funky Homo Sapien. This song is built around a song by Monkees singer Peter Tork, I think. Just a vocal sample. And Del the Funky Homo Sapien said that he wanted to envision the name Mr. Dobelina that's used in the sample and think, well, who would that be? So he's created the character for this song, and it's just really cool. It's just got a good bounce to it. It's really funky.
Yeah, I think I always like hip hop when it's just trying to be nonsense and fun.
Yeah.
And it is. And you can see from this track, you can see why Damon Albarn was really looking to work with him and Gorillaz.
Yeah.
With Clint Eastwood and Rock the House, yeah. I like Rock the House because it's got a recorder solo as well, which is always nice.
Yeah.
My first introduction to Del the Funky Homo Sapien was because I was massively into hip hop back then. I used to listen to the Radio 1 show. They used to have 1 hour on a Thursday night of hip hop, and I used to tune into it religiously. It's where I got all of my hip hop knowledge from. Was a track called Sleeping on My Couch, which is literally about a deadbeat mate who keeps coming round and fucking eating all your food and sleeping on your couch and doesn't leave till the morning sort of thing. But yeah, and the fact that he was cousin of Ice Cube was quite a big draw for me. But his flow, he's such a great rapper. He's so fucking good. It's like he was kind of almost in that midway between the really old school hip hop, like that Run DMC flow, which is quite simple, to making it a little bit more creative and a little bit more his syllable use is amazing. He breaks up words really well.
Yeah.
He just went a bit further than most rappers back then in kind of being creative with how he put his lines out.
Yeah, I think he's a gateway for people like Andre 3000. For instance. Without Del the Funky Homo Sapien, I don't think you get potentially Andre 3000. His influence is massive as well. So people like Kendrick and Anderson .Paak, they come from this school of thought, I think.
Also, at this period of time, this is a few years before he starts working with Dan the Automator and a few other people, which then go on to work with Dr. Octagon. And he does production with Corner Sharp and Gorillaz and all sorts of people later on. And it ties in with that kind of UK Mowax scene as well later on with James Lavelle and people like that. So he's got ties everywhere.
So glad you mentioned James Lavelle, because that is a kind of a gateway in that whole kind of between dance and experimental kind of electronic music, but hip hop as well, and trip hop.
Yeah, they all kind of blended in the early 90s and that sort of time, dance, trip hop, hip hop, and DJ culture and all of it all kind of melded in with graphic design and all sorts of and graffiti art and stuff like that, all kind of melted down. It was a really nice little period of kind of skate culture and all sorts in there.
How rich was that time, man? I'm gonna go back. I was gonna save this for later. I'm gonna go back to our first podcast. 1991 was the best year in music.
You called it early.
Well, we'll stay with some 1991 hip hop because next up in 16th place with a total of 40.5 points, it's one of Martin's, and this is Public Enemies by The Time I Get to Arizona.
Fuck yes, man.
What a heavy hitter that is.
Yeah, isn't it just?
Yeah.
It's just literally that whole album, Apocalypse 91, is a banger. It's Fear of a Black Planet is my Public Enemy album, but that came out and I'd already got overheard Fear of a Black Planet, and then that came out and it was did not disappoint in any way, but the one track that stood out was By the Time I Get to Arizona, because it's talking about the slave trade.
If you hear this on a club sound system, your chest will hurt. The bass and the highs are fucking unbelievable. I think it's a really good example of their like no holds barred extreme production techniques.
Bomb Squad, man. I mean, you know, there was probably no better production group around at that time. They threw everything in there. It was just, but they did it in a cohesive way. So by the time we get to Arizona, there's so much to actually sink your teeth into. There's so much to fucking take your attention away, but it is Chuck D's delivery, man. You can tell the passion that he's got in his
delivery. The enunciations of all the words are like he's heavy hitting.
Angry fucking man, and he's extremely passionate about what he's talking about, which was like the slave trade and stuff.
This song is about a backlash to Governor Evan Metcham in Arizona in 91, who had cancelled Martin Luther King Day. And so this was a protest about that. He had an idea for a song name based around Isaac Hayes' cover of By the Time I Get to Phoenix. And Chuck D preferred to come up with song titles before he wrote the songs. So he had that name, and then he changed it to Arizona to suit the circumstances which is going on in an angry protest. Is basically saying that he's going to go there and kick their asses, essentially.
Mm-hmm. I can play this song like back to back in a rock night next to like Rage, and no one really bats an eyelid, even though they're not even hip hop fans. But it's that punchy.
What I really like about it is the little nods to country music in the samples that they're throwing behind it. I think that's what really elevated this track for me, because it was like what he was rapping about and the music actually felt like they were designed to be put together. Like they've clearly thought, he's rapping about this, let's put some of this in the music underneath it. And I like that sort of reference there. That really worked for me. So I think this is the highest score I gave any of the hip hop tracks, this one.
I like that you noticed that, Tom, because like you said, the country samples in there, and country traditionally is very racist. It's fucking horrible. The fact that it's almost like throwing it back in their face and like going, yeah, fucking have it, man. God bless the Bomb Squad.
Classic lyrics, Elvis was a hero to most, but not to me, who's a straight-up racist.
In 15th place, we'll go in a slightly different direction now. Well, a very different direction. This is one of Tom's picks. It scored 40.6, and it's a band that I have been meaning to listen to upon a recommendation that I had. Never gave them a chance. Did, and it's a decent song. It is Good Morning Captain by Slint.
Whoa!
I'm really surprised at which ones of my picks are making this top 20.
Surprised as I am, Tom. Fucking hell.
Like, both Martin and I would have wanted this to be in the top 20, but none of us... Like, so Slint are one of the most important bands of the last 50 years. Like, in all seriousness, they're so... Like, what they're doing, they're taking sort of a post-hardcore route and then making something completely new. You've got the sort of spoken word. I mean, the end guitar riff is heavy as anything, considering the recording limitations they had in 91. The ending's really heavy. The spoken word's deep and meaningful. It covers a lot of different ground. There's lots of little references in what he's doing in the guitar work. It's just such an important track. And yeah, I mean, it's the drum sounds really, really well thought through, and like each beat feels really deliberate. Every single thing that they do on this track, and it's quite long, but it feels very deliberate. And it was hard for me. I knew I wanted to put something from Spiderland forward for this list, thinking in my head that there's not a chance in hell any track from Spiderland would make the top 20, because it's not accessible music. It's not an easily accessible sound. And I went with this one just because that heavy ending is just great.
Tom, you're the post-rock expert. I would say this is early post-rock.
It is very much so. So when you hear people, post-rock was originally designed to ascribed. Well, the term was first coined like in the way that we know it now. It was first coined in 94 to describe Bach psychosis. Now, Bach psychosis started in the late 80s at a similar time, and I think that post-rock as we know it now. Well, let's rephrase that. Post-rock as we knew it in the early 90s in America was bands like Rodan and Rachel's, and Slint are the band that started those acts. So Slint, this is the first American post-rock album, and I think Talk Talk is the first sort of more British sounding post-rock album. So yes, it is realistically where post-rock starts.
And I think you can probably say that Mogwai wouldn't have a career without Slint.
No, lots of bands wouldn't have a career without Slint. At the Drive-In wouldn't have a career without Slint.
No. They're so important. They're one of those bands that are extremely important but not very well known, because they're difficult to listen to. I mean, it was difficult to record the album. They went through therapy after they fucking recorded it, you know?
I mean, Spiderland didn't make any album of the year lists until like 98. It had no recognition at all and still to this day sold very few copies. But it's one of those albums. It's like it's a bit like the 90s version of Van der Graaf Generator were in the 70s, where Radiohead grew up listening to Van der Graaf Generator, but no one else bought anything by them. You know, it's the same sort of idea.
It's a band that I'm going to definitely get into off the back of it. I personally rated it an 8.6. I really like this song.
I'm most surprised, more than anything, that Dan has just said the words, he's going to explore Slint more. Of all bands that I can imagine Dan not liking.
I mean, I think I might, to be honest. I really enjoyed this one. I can't remember my score, but...
You scored it an 8.
Yeah, I remember when it started off, I was like, okay, this is pretty good. But then, like Tom said, like by the end, it's just... Yeah, it's fucking belting. I really liked it, actually. Because I think, because me and Tom were talking a bit whilst I was going through it, and he was pretty much prepping me to I don't think you'll like it too much. But honestly, I thought it was, it's class. I'll listen to more, definitely.
Well, I'm proud of myself now.
Next up in 14th position is one of Alex's picks.
Really?
It's a bit more accessible than Slint are. Everyone will know this song. Is Losing My Religion by R.E.M.
Yeah, all right,
man. I just love this song. Like, I'm not the biggest R.E.M. fan. I've got their greatest hits, which I quite enjoy. My stepdad listened to a lot of them, which is probably how I first heard it. But for me, it's by a country mile their best song.
It's up there, yeah.
Like, I like It's the End of the World and all that stuff, but like that for me, that's just... I don't know, it's just kind of weirdly upbeat and sad at the same time, isn't it? It's just... It's a perfect blend of... I don't know, I just love it. It's a perfect blend of whatever that blend is. And I think the vocals are great, the lyrics are brilliant.
Yeah.
And, it's just all-round catchy. I just don't think there's a bad point to this song. I just think it's fantastic.
Every line is a hook. It's great.
I think it's an undeniable banger. Personally, I think it's.
I would go with an undeniable banger.
I think it was my second favourite REM track of the nominations. So I preferred the other one. I preferred the other track that we nominated, which won't be coming up now. So I can mention that the other track that was nominated was "Shiny Happy People."
Oh, cut it off, Tom. Your band. I've used my band.
It's not as good. It's just not as good.
I prefer it, and I know that Michael Stipe resents that he ever wrote "Shiny Happy People" and claim, and they refused to play it live. But I love the vocals from the B-52's vocalist on that track are brilliant. "Losing My Religion," I think that REM were in the middle of like one of the best indie rock purple patches in history, because they followed Out of Time up with Automatic for the People, and then you've got Monster, which is 93, I think. Is that right? So you've got 91 Out of Time, 92 Automatic for the People, 93 Monster. I mean, what a run of albums to release.
And then Up afterwards, which is nothing to be sniffed at either.
Yeah, no, there's some great tracks on Up. But yeah, they're Losing My Religion. Part of the reason I think it stands up today is partly because Michael Stipe's vocal is so strong and obvious. I mean, apart from the fact that the singer from Idlewild sounds a lot like him, Michael Stipe is, apart from Roddy Woomble, is the only person who sounds like Michael Stipe.
I was listening to it on the radio as well. His rhyming patterns are always like enchantingly bizarre. It kind of like starts off in the third and fourth rhyming sort of sonnet pattern, but then it goes out of shape and comes back again.
Yeah.
At no point do you ever feel like it's stunted or forced or whatever. You're always like on a nice flow with him.
Like when I think of this song, I think it's probably the worst way of describing it, but it's like a more upbeat Mad World, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's one of those songs that sounds a lot deeper than it probably is as well, but makes you feel clever for listening to it. But
One of my favourite things about it is my least favourite musical instrument on the planet, and I'd like it banned forever, is a ukulele. However, what Losing My Religion uses a mandolin, which is kind of like
I was just about to say mandolin
superior instrument.
Peter Buck picked up a mandolin.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful sound. It's like if you
12-stringed version, isn't it? Or
8-stringed version of a ukulele, yeah.
But the mandolin is such a pure instrument, and it really is. And it's like kind of like anyone that plays a ukulele probably should learn to play a mandolin instead. It's just a fucking beautiful instrument. And
my friend plays it in their band Black Friday. But I think it's a great instrument, but the ukulele is trash. Yeah, it needs to be saved for the Hawaiian Islands.
I agree.
It's a really haunting song, and you can really sing along to it. It has some sort of vague resonance with people, in that it skirts with the idea of being relatable, but it's quite cryptic as well.
Yeah, it can relate to anyone.
Yeah.
You can find your own meaning in it.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
It's a good song. And I do like R.E.M., another band that I don't know well enough, and I should get into more of their stuff. Next up, well, this one's an interesting pick in 13th place. In 13th place is, it scored 40.8 points, and it is Learning to Fly by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers.
Oh, gee.
Really?
One of Tom's picks.
Another one of mine. How on earth? Like, I picked this one because it's like this. My dad loves very little music, so he doesn't like a lot of music. So my dad doesn't like a lot of music, but there's a few acts that he likes. And Travelling Wilburys, I think it's basically Travelling Wilburys, Black Sabbath, Steppenwolf, and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and that's about it. And this track is just, I had to put another cheesy-ish pop track in my nominations. And like, this track came out in 91, and it's like the antithesis of Losing My Religion, but it's a classic for similar reasons. The production on it's aged really well. The vocals are really good. The chorus is catchy. The band sound great. I mean, what more is there really to say about it? Everybody likes it. And Tom Petty's vocal, although it's limited, the song is so carefully written for his vocal delivery that it sounds amazing, even though he's not that great a singer.
It's got Jeff Lynne on it too, which is a big plus.
Wow, massive plus, yeah. I think it is up there with like one of those songs that you can possibly say is the perfect song. It's just so good, and it evokes exactly what it kind of wants you to, which is like an American highway, like in Escape, and like kind of you're in an open top Cadillac and you're just driving towards Las Vegas and you're like kind of free and you're just you're escaping something bad, but you're heading towards like this freedom
something
of
worse.
the open desert. Yeah, something worse. But yeah, and Tom Petty's vocals, man. I mean, I got into Tom Petty because of Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. He was a big Tom Petty fan, and I wasn't really that au fait with Tom Petty. But then when I started learning to play guitar as well, Learning to Fly was one of the first songs I learnt. My guitar teacher taught me it, and he taught me it because he said it was a really good example of doing palm muting, which is like, you know, a staple for guitar players. So he taught me the basic power chords that are used throughout the song and the palm muting technique. And I played it over and over again, constantly, because it's satisfying to play. It's lush to listen to. It's an American escape song. It's perfect, man. Tom, that was cool. When I saw that on the list, I was like, yes, man, like, because that wouldn't have occurred to me to choose that.
No, I'm surprised that no one else thought of it.
No, I wish I had. I was like, yes, get on.
I haven't heard much Tom Petty, and I liked it. I think we're going to have a lot of this in our top 20, where if a song's likeable, just easy going music, the sort of thing you'd listen to on the bus, you know, like you're quite happy to listen to. You don't want to reevaluate your entire life. You just want to, you know, same reason why ZZ Top are awesome. You know, sometimes you just want to listen to just good old Americana, you know?
Yeah, Americana's great. And it is one of those things, it's like, it's not something you choose. I wouldn't get up in the morning and go, I really need to listen to some Tom Petty. But you put on the radio and like they play it, you go, fuck, I love this song.
Yeah, it's the same feeling you get when you have Rolling Thunder comes on, Bruce Springsteen, or like...
Yeah.
In 12th place, we'll find out what 12th place is after a musical interlude. 12th place is one of my tracks for the evening. It scored 40.8 points. It is Fishbone's Fight the Youth.
Whoa!
Martyn's, please.
Fishbone representing. I nominated 3 from that album, The Reality of My Surroundings. It's a really good album. They're a ska punk band. We mentioned them in the festivals episode. This is more their kind of funk metal days. Early in their late 80s, early 90s, they were more of a funk metal outfit. There's some really interesting guitar tones going on. It's quite heavy. And it has they have a really good knack for discovering a good vocal hook as well, Fishbone. So they combine that to make this really aggressive but really good funky metal song.
Yeah, this is my favourite of their songs. I mean, I listened to the whole album afterwards, and it is my favourite track on the album because there are 2 bands that I loved in the mid-90s, which this track particularly is basically almost a blueprint for, and that's the band. Do you remember the band Root Juice?
Yes, I remember Root Juice.
Yeah.
They were the Pound Shop Reef.
I fucking love Root Juice.
But yeah, they had that sort of...
Take
that
a
sort
sip
of
of cup of tea.
But they had that sort of funk heavy sound going on that this track has, and the other band is actually Incubus's first album. Sounds a lot like this sort of thing, and
Can't Keep Living This Way. That was the single.
There's elements of Living Colour there. Even Red Hot Chili Peppers' early stuff has got a vibe similar to this.
I would say, like, when I Fight the Youth is my favourite Fishbone song, and I'm a big Fishbone fan. And one of the reasons is obviously being a guitar player, I focus on the guitar playing, but every little tiny minutiae of the production on that track is perfect. It's mixed so perfectly. That guitar riff is fucking heavy, and there's like about 3 or 4 layers of guitar on that. So it's like it's multi-tracked, and it's done so well that it just sounds like one guy jamming. But it isn't. It is like kind of multi-tracked. But then it's fucking riffy and shit. And then it goes into that like kind of funky, kind of like clean guitar sound bit, which is just so. That clean guitar sound is just perfect.
I was saying earlier, it's a band I've sort of heard in passing, but never really paid much mind to. But being forced to listen to basically the album from this year, they're fucking brilliant.
Yeah,
they're like really
fucking
good.
amazing.
I completely reassess my opinion on them. I kind of thought they were sort of primacy, sort of experimental, wanky sort of band I wasn't really into, but it's not the case. I'm happy that they're in this list. I'm not amazingly chuffed it's this song. That Nasty Man song absolutely blew me away. I thought that was fucking incredible. I replayed it like 5 times in the band.
I think with the musicianship of Fishbone, I think they're all good enough to be session musicians. They are that good. Every musician in Fishbone are such virtuosos at their instruments. They're so good at what they play. You can imagine them doing. If you said like, "Oh, can you do a Saturday Night Live performance?" They'd be like, "Yeah, if I can do it," and they would nail it. And they're that good. They are just professionals, absolute 100 professionals. And you know they're just their playing is just on point. They don't lose a trick. They're a fucking incredible band. Incredible. So underrated. But you can imagine if someone said, "Oh, it's a bunch of session musicians," you would believe it. They're that good.
I'd honestly never heard of the band before until I listened to it today, and yeah, Dan's right. It slaps. It was really good.
In 11th place, with a total of 41.1. Is another of Tom's picks. This one is the breakthrough single for one of Martyn's favourite bands. It's the Manic Street Preachers with You Love Us.
Oh, yes!
The heavenly version, the original 1991 heavenly release, which features the sample of Threnody to the victims of Hiroshima, and the end coda, which is a cover of Lust for Life.
What can I say? I'm almost disappointed in Martyn that he didn't put this. He didn't nominate
What a
this.
fucking letdown, right?
What was the album it was from?
It was later released in a different version in 92 on Generation Terrorists. But that's a different version.
They originally signed to Heavenly Records before they went on to, like, I think Columbia or something like that. And the Heavenly version is the one that Tom's chosen, which is where they did their Lust for Life ending rather than the album version on Generation Terrorists, which was, like, more of the, James Dean Bradfield doing a guitar solo.
So what was the year Holy Bible come out?
'94.
94.
Because that was I know it was a little bit late, but that was the album that I had that absolutely popped. I loved it.
Oh yeah, well that's the gateway, really.
So they released a handful of singles in 91. There's about 5 or 6. This is my favourite of them because, I mean, this song, it's got a real punk vibe to it. The chorus is great, and it's probably, of all the things they released in 91, it's probably the most melodic chorus. But the thing that I really love about this particular track is when you're in the chorus, now this is a really little thing to love, but when you listen to the chorus, James Dean Bradfield's doing this little harmonic line out with the guitar over the top, and it's just perfect. It's just... I like those little moments where you just hear something and you're like, oh, that just catches your ear. And you're just like, yeah, that's really cool. And in the chorus of this song, there's a little like harmonic line that he's playing over the top. And it's quite an anthemic chorus. And it's just got this little floaty guitar harmonics. It's just really, really pretty. So yeah, it's just a great song with an anthemic chorus. It's, you know, like... What more can I say? I'm really glad the Manics are on this list.
Yeah, so am I. And I love the sentiment as well, because the Manic Street Preachers were very in your face at the time. They were very much like, no one knew who they were. And they were just these 4 childhood friends from Wales, poor mining town. And they were like, we're going to be bigger than Guns N' Roses. We're going to be bigger than the Beatles. And you're going to love us. And it was like, you love us. And I remember when I first heard it,
they definitely fell short of that, didn't they?
Oh, come on, man.
Well, no, they haven't, I don't think. Like, look at how many copies Everything Must Go sold.
Yeah, the Manic Street Preachers have more than proved themselves, I think. But what I loved about it was the arrogance. It's just like, you love us. And it wasn't like kind of that whole like, oh, we're in a band and like, we're here for you, man. It was like, no, you're there for us as a band. And I really liked that complete arrogance of just... we're the best thing you'll ever hear in your life, and just in your face with it. And it's quite confrontational. And at the time when I heard it, I was like, how fucking dare you? I'll choose whether I like you or not. But, turns out, like, Manics are in my top 5 bands.
You massively did.
Yeah. And I love that. And, yeah, and the riff is just so simple. And, and like you said, Tom, James Dean Bradfield is a master arranger. And I think you can lay... all of the Manic Street Preachers' genius moments down to James Dean Bradfield alone. Like, he is the Manics.
But his solo stuff never touches the peaks of early Manics. Like, I think the aggression comes from Ritchie. Like, I think that's the thing. Like, so when he disappeared, I think the Manics went a bit MOR.
They went elegiac, yeah. But then you got to remember with the Manics, one of the reasons they went that way was a sense of... they've lost one of their best friends they've ever had, as a childhood friend they grew up with. It's one of their cousins, and it's like, how do you follow an album that you made with that person who's going through that depression? How do you follow it? So you do Everything Must Go. And like, that was the only thing you could do.
It was Peter Hook's 65th birthday yesterday, and he was on the radio talking about something very similar about when they lost in Curtis. And they went on to do New Order, and he said, when you're kind of young and you're in a band and everything's going 90 miles an hour, you kind of don't really grieve and everything gets put into the music. So I can imagine something very similar happened with that.
Absolutely, yeah. They took a different course because the music changed, because that, like Tom said, that angry element was not there anymore, and it was kind of like they had to like reflect more. But anyway, that song, fucking You Love Us, is just, it's the Manic statement of intent. They came out and they were like, we are going to be the biggest band in the world, and there's nothing you can do about it. Fucking wonderful. What band is doing that now? I can't think of a band that is doing that now. Maybe Shame to a degree, they're like kind of, you're going to fucking like this music whether you like it or not. But I don't think there's many bands now that have that attitude of going, we're on stage, we're in charge, and you're going to listen to it.
It's migrated more towards how hip hop performers are now presenting themselves. I mean, if you point to a modern artist whose arrogant statement of intent, as you've put it, is out there for all to see, you look to people like Cardi B, like Megan the Stallion, and
Kanye.
Yeah, Kanye, people like that. It's migrated more onto hip hop culture. It's not really seen in rock very much. and it's unusual in that regard, this single. But yeah, I think it's a wonderful song.
The providence of the downtrodden, isn't it? So, the people that are being oppressed at the moment aren't really the working classes being thrown over out the factories by Thatcher anymore. It's more, unfortunately, there's still women and minorities. So they're the ones with the anger.
Yeah. We'll move into the top 10. We're also scoring 41.1 points, but moving ahead on the basis of it did score a 10. This is surprisingly Dave's first appearance in the list this evening. This song is called Papua New Guinea, and it's by the Future Sound of London.
Yeah, great single. This, when I first made these lists, hip-hop was so prevalent in this particular period. It's not really what you call the golden era, so I won't go into too much about the hip-hop at the moment, but I kind of focused on a lot of the late 80s, early 90s, obviously dance music that was kicking about at the time. And this band are a real sort of hidden gem. They're really intellectually forward-producing sort of soundscape rave music, which follows on a little bit from the conversation we had about the Verve earlier, but really sort of in-depth, long, sort of building and then crescendoing down dance music, which wasn't really the case at the time. Acid house and dance music just tended to be four to the floor, straight production, as hard as driving as you can, because you were really focusing on the dancer and the person which the music intended for, rather than taking them on a journey and sort of guiding them through things with a soundscape and invoking sort of like the tribal element and looking to Africa and looking to Southern America for inspiration and looking to the tribes for inspiration of how they had 2, 3, 4 day ayahuasca ceremonies and so forth and kept them going, because rave culture was obviously similar in that way of people would stay up for days and days and days. And to have those sort of driving, rolling beats was very important. But yeah, really, really groundbreaking band. And I know that Tom's got a little bit to say about them, because he was piping up on the chat saying he hadn't really heard of them before.
No, so like there was a lot of early 90s dance music that I did really enjoy. But Future Sound of London had never crossed my radar. And like, I'm amazed that I hadn't heard them before, because I went through a phase of listening to huge amounts of 90s electronica, mostly a bit later, like Autechre. I can't pronounce the name, I don't care.
It is Autechre.
Oh, cool. Like Aphex Twin, Square Pusher. Yeah, that sort of thing. And like this band, this particular track, and actually I went down a bit of a rabbit hole with this band. This band were doing that same sort of thing before.
Yeah, years before. Real groundbreaking sort of.
It really
musos being involved in it.
Like the text, the synths on this. So a lot of early 90s dance music, the synths have aged terribly, particularly like the piano and keyboard sounds have aged dreadfully.
Bad production.
Whereas like this track, you could, if they released this track today, it would still sound current. There's not a single thing on
these type of bands, Tom. Normally, these guys started off as roadies or people that set up the sound stages for these DJs to go in. So they're like real tech heads. When I went to university and did sound and music production, I had a lecturer that was an old rave audio head, basically, and he knew everything there was to know about everything about hertz, frequencies, refresh rates, ohms, speaker responding times, like the maths which went into the waveforms of every single bass signature, all these types of weird things. And these are the guys which, when they got into production, when they started getting into making this type of music, had that background and really knew what they were doing.
Yeah, it's incredible. The textures on it are brilliant. Like it is music to just stick headphones on and just drift away to. It's fantastic. This is a band that you could put on just while reading a book, and it just like it's just,
I think it would
beautiful.
appeal to the same sort of people that like sort of prog rock and shoegaze and all those other genres that are just soundscapes. They're ethereal. They're trying to take you to a different world, different place.
It's one of those songs which I think personally this song could have been 20 minutes long and you'd still been listening. It goes down at the right spots. It comes back in at the right places, and the general melodies are just amazing. And it's just such a good song, man. It's really good. I really liked it.
Do you know what I loved about it? Is when that came out, I was really into the Orb, and Blue Room was out. I got into Papua New Guinea later on, and I love the bass line. It's just that dub reggae bass line over like a dance beat, which was like quite really big back then. It was like a natural bass line which you don't hear anymore. You didn't hear it much before then or after.
Well, they took real inspiration from tribal music. There was loads of kind of like rave outfits. There's one in particular called Tribal Frog, and then later on you get the psytrance and like a whole specific genre towards it. But in the early rave culture days, they were really looking to find new samples, find new sounds, and looking at the sort of witch doctor sort of ceremonies which happen in ancient cultures and seeing how those soundscapes worked. But yeah, this was one of those type projects. But yeah, it's a great rave tune.
It's one of the best ever. It really is. Groundbreaking.
In ninth place is one of Alex's picks.
Hooray!
With 41.2 points. And it is a banger of a single, guys. It is Sit Down by James.
Oh.
Wow, this is way lower than I thought it was going to be.
Tom was expecting number one.
I thought this was going to go number one on the list. I honestly did.
I just like how, even though we're doing the decimal systems, they're that close, like 41, or 40.1 and 40.2, whatever. It's crazy.
See, I gave this a 10. It's the only 10 I gave.
See, this, for me, this band, I like. I don't mind James. I think they're good. They're like almost on the cusp end of that Manchester scene. But this song just plagued my upbringing, to the point of people like sitting down on club floors, and then it would be played back to back with like Oops Upside Your Head and other type,
which is a banger,
interactive songs and bangers, but they're basically on par with the Macarena. It was like actions to dance.
They've been reduced
music
to novelty dances.
Yeah, exactly. You might as well do the Birdman or the Superman or the Tweet Tweet song
the
or whatever
cha-cha
at
slide,
this point.
that kind of thing.
All of those things.
Take dodgy dance moves aside, like lyrically, it's very clever. What it's talking about is really important.
Yeah, it's a protest song, basically.
It's a protest song. Musically, it's fantastic, particularly the re-recorded version that was released in 91. Like, his vocal performance is fantastic. The production's completely ageless, and the chorus is really catchy.
The original recording's about 8 minutes long, I think. This is the more concise single release in 91, and I think it's improved by it. I don't think the song needs to be as long as the original version. I think this one's more concise, and therefore it turns it into a more enjoyable single. And I think that's why it's got a lot of popularity amongst end of 1991 lists because it's an enjoyable song, and there's not much else to it. You can sing along to it. The lyrics, as Tom said, are clever. You can relate to them. There's a kind of underdog vibe to it, and it's got a good message about unity and getting along with it with people.
Was anyone else going to pick it if I didn't pick it?
Yeah, I had it on my list and took it off because you picked it.
Oh, that's good, because it's quite funny because you guys know the song way better than I do. Because I'll be honest, with this list, because it was 30 songs, 91 wasn't a year for a lot of the bands I like. So I got to I think at the time I thought we were allowed to only pick one of each artist. I didn't realise that was just for the top 20. So I was really struggling around the sort of 17, 18 mark. So I just went on a YouTube video of top singles from 91.
I know, that hurt me, to be honest, that I'm struggling to whittle things down to fucking...
I'm terrible, yeah.
30 songs, and you're like, I'm just picking shit off YouTube. I was like, what? Give me some of your picks!
My rule was I'm not allowed to pick songs I haven't previously heard before making the list. Because I think if I just went, oh, this album came out in 91, I haven't heard this, I'm going to listen to the whole album and decide this is one of my favourite songs of that year.
Almost my stupid as my self-enforced rule. Am I going to pick hip-hop because that's a banging year? And then, oh, shit, I haven't got any room for dance.
But I remember just listening to it and going, oh, yeah, I remember this song. This is the tits. And that was the extent of it.
Well, there we go.
It was brilliant. And I'm glad everyone else agrees. It's just a good song. It's catchy.
Moving on.
That's what all we need to say about Sit Down is that is the tits. We've got another one of your picks, Alex, in 8th position.
Yeah.
It's Lithium, Nirvana.
It's always been my favourite on the album. I've always just liked the verses, the quietness, and then just it's not even clever, the chorus, just
It's a more refined version of Smells Like Teen Spirit, I find.
Yeah, I think so. I think I've just got a soft spot for the music video as well, because it's them sort of playing live and he jumps into the drum kit, doesn't he? And I've always it just seems a lot more chaotic than a lot of the other songs in the album. It just seems a lot less clever, just let's play soft for a bit, and then for the chorus just ramp it up and everyone go mental, and it's very good.
I find it funny how he manages to sound like he's got his tongue in his cheek when he's singing "Yeah, yeah, yeah." You know, he sounds like he's taking the mick out of pop songs when he does.
But he's done it multiple times on multiple songs, hasn't he?
Yeah,
yeah.
It's a really, really good track. It's also my favourite on that album.
I think I'm a "Come As You Are" guy, which used to be for many years the tagline on my Twitter profile. I really love "Come As You Are," and I think it added that extra poetic irony of the line "I don't have a gun," being the fact that that's what ended his life. That's why that song has a deeper impact with me. But Lithium is great, and it's
well, he didn't have a gun. His missus killed him, as we all well know.
Oh, let's not go there.
Everyone knows that.
Let's not go there. QAnon Dave.
With "Come As You Are," because I used to play bass, that was the bass line everyone learned, and it always annoyed me because I could never get the right tab for the end bit of that bass riff. It's just that last couple of notes I always fucked up, and I can never get it right. And to this day, it will just haunt me that I just never managed to get that end bit.
Tom will know this. "Come As You Are" is totally ripped off Killing Joke's 80s.
Oh, you fucking absolute legend, and I'm glad you brought this up. That is a fucking absolute slapper.
Yes, it is.
And there's this is why I fucking don't like Nirvana so much. There's so many instances of this, and I will run you down about 90 songs which are complete rips.
Let's give us the
of all
abridged
their
version,
songs.
please, Dave. We haven't got time to discuss another 90 songs.
Well, not now. I'll do it in the chat. But the greatest example is Killing Joke 80s.
No, man, I think Lithium's a great song. I wouldn't have chosen it off Nevermind. I had a couple of choices off Nevermind that didn't make the cut because Ride, I realised, released the EP that year. But anyway, I would have chosen Something in the Way because I think it's probably Kurt Cobain's most honest, most purest, look into... It's a suicide anthem, and it is literally like the one moment where... in all of Kurt Cobain's career as a musician, it's the one moment where you actually got to really see the fragility of his mental health. I think Something in the Way is a heartbreaking song on that level, but also on a musical level. It's just a fucking acoustic guitar, and it's not even playing full chords. It's just like playing the bass notes on acoustic guitar and a cello, and Kurt just hurting himself. It's just beautiful. I think if I chose any song off Nevermind, that would be the one. Or Breed or Territorial Pissings. Those two are fucking awesome songs as well. They're just far better. Although I will say, I'll concede, Lithium is a fucking awesome song.
Well, it's one of those albums where there's just not one bad song on the album, really.
There isn't really, except Teen Spirit. I cannot listen to Teen Spirit.
Yeah, but you can't deny it was really good until you heard it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
When I first heard it, I was like, wow, what is this?
But it did. Even when I first heard it, I didn't like it, and it was just it was too obvious. It was too I'd heard the Pixies, and I knew what lyrics that don't mean anything was all about, and it's it was a Generation X anthem that really shouldn't have been a Generation X anthem. I think Lithium would have been a better Generation X anthem.
I love that song. It's quite funny with Smells Like Teen Spirit. Whittle might get this, but I think I might have talked about this before. But the reason I liked that song in the first place is because Diamond Dallas Page in WCW, the wrestling, used it as his entrance music.
Yeah.
So when it came out when I was young, I was like, oh man, this is the Diamond Dallas entrance music. Oh, this is amazing. That's what got me into them.
Right, if we're banning politics, can we also ban wrestling?
No.
Never. Boo.
Not by the hair on my chinny chin editing chin. Alex, you'll be excited to hear you've got another pick, because scoring a total of 41.7 points in 7th place is Dead Embryonic Cells by Sepultura.
Yes! Yeah, no, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I've just bits. Is this because I gave it a 10? It's probably, I think I might have boosted it a bit.
Well, it's scored consistently high amongst everyone, apart from Dave, who scored it a 6, which is still respectable.
Yeah, but in metal, that's like a Dave 10. That's pretty good.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with that. I mean, I've talked about this album too much because Arise is one of my favourite albums of all time. For me, it's just what thrash is and what it should be forever. But A Dead Embryonic Cells is my favourite song on the album. It's actually got my favourite riff of all time on that song as well. It's you know when it dies down and it stops and just goes did-did-dun, 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 the drums. Like fucking hell, man.
We needed it in the podcast. We were waiting.
When you think of slaps, we're talking. That's our phrase for today. That song, that bit slaps so hard. It's such a simple riff and it's such a simple drum beat, but it's just something to be said. Not one person can listen to that and just not nod their head. It's perfect. Even when it starts to do the lead bit towards the end, it starts to ruin it a bit. She's like, oh no, just keep with that for another 20 bars. I fucking love that song. It's probably the most cleverest song on the album. They've got like a sort of cool wanky intro, you know. Like, it's cool, man. I love it. I love Sepultura. Like, what got me into Sepultura is I bought a DVD in our local CD shop, which just had a live performance of them live in Barcelona, which has had that album and the previous 2 or 3, I think it was. And so anything after that I've never liked as much because I was just obsessed with this DVD.
Let me just give you a background. All gigs in Barcelona are amazing. The city is fucking insane.
If you see a lot of live videos in America specifically, the crowds tend to be a lot more placid and tame. I think it's probably because they just get a lot more bands coming through their towns. But honestly, man, like, what can I say about a song? Amazing. One of the best songs ever written, in my opinion. So
I'm not a big thrash guy. It's not massively my scene, as we know. I really love this song. I gave it a 9.2.
It's great.
I think it's so good at the aggression that it sends out. It's so natural. I think a lot of the problem I have with other metal is that it never feels natural. It feels forced. They're embodying a character telling a story. In this, it just feels raw and passionate and primal, and that's why I love it, because you can connect with that. It comes from the heart. They're not trying to achieve a technical level of proficiency. They do, because they're phenomenal musicians, but I think their focus is just on delivering the aggression.
It's even if, like, let's say, even if you're not into thrash music, it's like I'm not that into, like, shoegaze, for example. But if you showed me the best shoegaze song ever written, I'm probably going to like it. Like, Dead Embryonic Self for me is, like, the best thrash song ever written. So, like, even if you're not even that into it, you must at some point be able to appreciate it. I mean, Dave gave it a 6. That's pretty sweet. I'm stoked.
Anything lower than a 6, I didn't like it. You know, it's all right.
That's all right.
This is my favourite song on the album, but let's just make one thing clear, right? The drum sound on that album.
Fuck off, Tom.
Sucks.
Fuck off. I will take no criticism of this album. The sound was perfect. 10 out of 10.
The track's really good. The guitar riffs are great. This is the track his vocals sound the best on. Like, the vocals are produced the best on this, but through the whole album, the drum sound sucks.
No.
Just going to make that clear now. The drum sound is appalling. The track's really good, but you have to get over
rustic.
how bad the drum
Band like
sounds.
Sepultura, you had the big four, didn't you? Anthrax, Megadeth, Metallica, and Slayer, and like they're all incredible in their own way. But then you had these outliers. You had Pantera, and then you had Sepultura that were just as good as those bands, but took that whole thrash level a little bit further. And I don't think you would have bands like Slipknot if it wasn't for bands like Sepultura. It's like, again, how could we make this sound that is so awesome just that little bit more extreme? And that's why I gave it such a high a high mark. Also because the instrumentation is just so good. I mean, yeah, the guitar playing is impeccable. Such good guitar playing, so tight.
There's quite a few bits to the song as well. It's not as straightforward as a lot of their other stuff, and yeah, it's just one of the best songs ever written, in my humble opinion.
Well, our statistics, I would say it has a resonance with everyone. So I would say that Dead Embryonic Cells by Sepultura is an undeniable banger. In sixth place is one of my picks, although I think there's somebody else who would be wanting to represent for these guys. With 41.8 points, it is Even Flow by Pearl Jam.
Oh, man. Dan, take it away. Come on, Dan. I want to hear your view on it.
We've already discussed this song back on episode number 2. And we all agree that it is a great song. There's a melodic...
My favourite Pearl Jam song.
And I think that was what was ultimately going to be the question we were going to ask of Pearl Jam in this episode, because they had 4 nominations, including Ocean's Release, and the other one was Black. And this one did come out on top. The others did fare quite well, but this one did just edge out on top. And I think the accessibility of the track within the context of grunge being quite an outsider piece, an outsider scene, I think that's apparent here, with the evidence being how well it's finished in this list. I don't think there's a lot more we need to say.
Like I would admit, before Martin goes, because I rag on Pearl Jam a lot, and partly because I just enjoy doing it because I know it fucks off Martin to no end. But like revisiting this song, I was a bit like, oh yeah, okay, it is a good song. Like, I'm not a big fan of his vocal style, but other than that, it is a good song. It's undeniable. It's a good song. Like, you can't really deny it. I still think it probably is their best song.
I'm the Pearl Jam guy here, and what can I say about Pearl Jam? There's a little, catchphrase for you, but like, I just Even Flow is not one of my favourite Pearl Jam songs, but because I'm such a Pearl Jam fan, and the one thing about Eddie's vocals in it is that I do get what Tom was talking about before, because I've recently I scored Gigaton way under what I should have done in the top 10 of the 2021, because listening to it more, I wish I'd scored it higher, but it's because Eddie Vedder's vocals are now like exactly how he should sound, and they're very mature, and back then he was very like kind of doing his thing. And a lot more I kind of hear it now. Yeah, a lot more angst, and I hear it, and I kind of get what Tom means. Like, I kind of go, well, hang on, yeah. It is a bit like kind of forced to like, but...
Take me higher.
Singer from Creed, give me back my voice, and like...
Why are we singing Ronan Keating again?
I've got something to tell you.
The thing about Eddie Vedder's vocals is Eddie Vedder's vocals have always been perfect. And you listen to the intervals, he does a lot of octaves. So go, it does that a lot. But just the arrangement of the song is so perfect, and the fact that it's about homelessness as well. Like, people hear it and they go, "Oh, it's this upbeat grunge anthem. Oh, it's rock and roll," and it's actually about like one of the worst things anyone could ever go through: not having somewhere to live. On the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, no shelter means you are struggling. And like, that's what he's singing about. A bit like Alive, where he's singing about an abusive childhood, and it's like people think, oh, I'm still alive, oh, everything's great. It's not. It's like, I've just survived, I'm alive, just about. And I think Even Flow is a great song, it really is. And it stands up for me as like, a song that really touched me when I was going through. You got to remember, I was like, a very impressionable 16, 17-year-old then, and Pearl Jam were the one band that really got to me. But, like, if I was going to choose any song off the album, it wouldn't be Even Flow. It's not the best song on the album, but I'm fucking glad it made it this far, because it's one of the most recognisable songs. And it does, if Aliens came down and said, play me some Pearl Jam, I would probably pick Even Flow as one of the songs to show them and go, that's what they sound like.
When you're a fan of a band, like if there's one song that everyone else gravitates to, like the single or something, like in your own head, it's kind of like, okay, that's the benchmark Pearl Jam song. So even in your head as a fan, you'll go, is it better or worse than the song I first heard?
Yeah, you want everyone to get into the deeper cut.
That's a really good point. I think you've hit the nail on the head.
Yay!
Yay!
It only took us 2 hours.
He's been very restrained this evening. He needs a or something.
Even Flow is like kind of the go-to track. You know, Alive, Even Flow, Black. They're all the go-to Pearl Jam songs. They are not their best in my opinion, but only because, exactly like you said, I'm so deep into Pearl Jam. I'm into the deep cuts. I'm into like the stuff that it isn't the stuff that everyone else listens to. But fuck me, am I so happy that Even Flow made it this fucking high, because it is an anthem. It is just like, it is like, if you think like, you know, what does 1991 sound like? It sounds like Even Flow, Smells Like Teen Spirit. It sounds like those fucking songs. So yeah, I'm not going to say any more about Pearl Jam. We only got one song from each band and each album and stuff, and like, yeah, fucking well happy.
In 5th place is one of Al's picks.
What? Yeah, boy!
And it is the highest placing Ice Cube song of the evening. It is Steady Mobbing.
Yeah, I actually listened to Martyn's one, and I actually thought that one was probably better. But I hadn't heard it before, so it didn't meet my rules. But I love that song, man. Steady Mobbing's good.
Steady Mobbing's great.
Both Dave and Martyn scored it an 8, so it scored very highly amongst everyone. It's a great song.
It's one of his best, I think. Well,
it's fucking Ice Cube, man. Ice Cube is one of the greatest rappers of all time, and yet his like delivery is very old school, and it's not very progressive.
Yeah.
But like, he is a poet, and he is like, it's not just about his delivery in the sense that, you know, the flow in which he, you know, kind of like delivers the lines. It's more about the tones in his voice and the aggression in his voice and the anger it comes through. It's almost like, you know how Eddie Vedder sounds like singing, Ice Cube sounds rapping. Like, the tone in his voice matters so much, and the lyrics matter so much. So, like, he's not the greatest rapper in the world.
No, that's what I wrote in my notes.
Like, he is, yeah, he's not. But that doesn't matter, because what he's doing is he's delivering it in a way that you know he means it. You know he's not bullshitting. He's not fucking about. He's like, this is what I'm talking about, and you're going to listen to it.
I mean, with this song specifically, it just a sample to use, you know, did. Oh, it's just so good, it's so catchy, and it's just, and with his voice over top, it's just such a driving. You just feel like you're driving forward all the time.
Dave, you'll know this. It was the Death Certificate album, wasn't it? Was it still like produced by the Bomb Squad, or did he move on by that point?
No, I think Dre still did some of the production for him on that.
Really? On that one? What, with no Vaseline on it?
No, I don't think it was Dre.
Because they had major beef. And it was like...
Well, No Vaseline is one of the greatest diss songs. In fact, it probably is the greatest.
I'd never heard it. I loved it. I think I scored that the highest.
It's so hard-hitting. It's almost difficult to listen to, but it's so awesome with that music, that Daz hook.
The thing I didn't like about No Vaseline was because although it's a diss track, the backing is very, very related to what it's dissing. So it's dissing NWA. It sounds like an NWA track, but dissing NWA, which is what I didn't like about No Vaseline, which is why it didn't score so high. Whereas Steady Mobbing, like, the beat is probably my favourite of the beats in all of the hip hop that we listen to.
It's produced by Boogeyman and Ice Cube himself.
Oh, Ice Cube produced it himself.
And it looks like DJ Pooh did some stuff with it.
But what they love doing,
That fact has been checked.
what Ice Cube liked doing back then was quite a few rappers were doing. They liked sampling Funkadelic and Parliament. They were quite big. Like Digital Underground were around that time.
Well, it's a bit like Snoop. That was like his era. So he grew up listening to funk and soul, and when they got into hip hop, really they wanted to be funk artists, but they ended up being hip hop artists because that was what was about at the time and that was available to them. But even if you see Snoop DJ now, he still wants to DJ like old funk tunes.
P-Funk is the creepy older relative of G-Funk. And I don't mean that in a bad sense. It is certainly a strange being, P-Funk, but it's so intrinsically linked with G-Funk in the production of G-Funk that most of these songs sample a George Clinton tune of some kind. And Atomic Dog was used so regularly.
So much. I think George Clinton also kind of became almost like a bit like Gil Scott-Heron in a godfather of rap, you know, like a kind of overseer, a bit like Neil Young to grunge, George Clinton was to hip hop.
In fourth place is one of my picks. This one scored 41.9, and it is A Tribe Called Quest, and the song from the Low End Theory, which is my favourite hip-hop album of all time, and this is my favourite song on it. It was a single, and it's Check the Rhyme.
Yes, Check the Rhyme's great. There's two versions of it. There's the one on the album, which is fucking fantastic. There's also a remix, which is kind of a little bit more mellow with some more like synth stuff in there. They're both incredible. Check the Rhyme was probably one of the first Tribe songs that I heard that I really fucking loved and like absolutely loved.
It's all about the hook on the bass. It's just infectious when that bass line kicks in for the verses. It's just,
you say kicks in for the verses, but there isn't really a chorus.
Well,
there's just a sax line.
Yeah,
that's
most of the best hip hop doesn't need a chorus.
Oh, see, this is the thing. The reason why I struggle to get into hip hop, and like the reason I liked the Ice Cube track that came up before, and I scored that pretty well, whereas I scored this one. I'm probably the lowest score for this one, I imagine, because I gave it 7.2, because my favourite hip-hop tracks have some form of a chorus or some form of a change-up. And my problem with this song, not the rapping on it's great and they've got something to say, but it doesn't go anywhere. And like there's a sax line and that's it. And like it just ends, the song just sort of cuts off. It doesn't really like end. There's no structure other than the rhyme, which if you listen to hip-hop for that, it's great. And like it's very good at what it does, but the track doesn't do anything other than a rap.
But you have to remember with hip hop, there's a great line when Texas did a song with Wu-Tang, and Texas asked Wu-Tang what key they want the song to be in, and they will just burst out laughing and say, "We don't fucking match a key to a song ever." And you have to remember, like, all of these guys, all they fucking had available to us was a shitty old record player, a shitty old mic, and their mum and dad's record collection. And they made beautiful music along with poetry alongside with those shitty ingredients. So hip-hop is of that construction because of the limitations that were put on them because of the shitty situation that they were in. And to have any sort of positivity and good outlook to come out of it is, I think, a success to the genre. And you can't really put normal production techniques together because they weren't formally trained. They probably didn't end up in fucking school. They're probably spat out by the system. And to do what they've done is fucking unbelievable with the shit tools that they were given.
Especially when you consider the horns. It's a very jazzy album, and it's influenced a lot by old school. It's got an appearance by Ron Carter, jazz bassist, on the album, and it's a lot more of a jazz oriented hip hop direction for alternative hip hop, and this is the best example of how hip hop was going to expand in its sound, and it wasn't just going to rely on sparse beats and that kind of drum machine driven music, and instead it was going to revisit other aspects of black music in jazz, and it was going to go in a different direction. And Tribe were probably, in my opinion, the best band at doing that. You've got people like De La Soul, you've got people like Arrested Development, but I think Tribe Called Quest were the best of the alternative hip hop bands, and this is their sound embodied in one song. And I think it's the best song on the Low End Theory, and I think that's the best record.
I'd never heard of the group. Well, I've heard of them, but I've never listened to it. And the one thing, the beats were good, and there wasn't, like you say, like there wasn't one bad rhyme in it. You know what I mean? There wasn't even one mediocre one. The flow for every one of the artists on it was just flawless.
Yeah, Q-Tip, man. Q-Tip's always that good.
cracking record collection as well. If you ever go online and look at like legendary record collections, legendary producers, Q-Tip's got a banging collection.
Made me miss Five Dog as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, the reason you can't listen to De La Soul as freely as you'd like to is because they never cleared any of the samples. So when everyone's trying to release their music on streaming sites, they enter copyright issues all the fucking time. And that then leads into the whole sample issue, which you've looked into a million times.
Really interestingly on that point, Dave, I know we're going back to when we spoke of earlier, Future Sound of London, they used Steve Reich in it. They never got that approved. They released the track. They were going to be sued by Steve Reich's record label, but the composer made them stop and then became friends with the band as a result of it.
Yeah, you'll find a lot of those stories that there was going to be a stop on it, but the artist contacts the sampled artist and just comes to some arrangement. They're like, look, you haven't had any fucking success in 30 years, geezer. How about I give you a Rolls Royce and a hand job and you just fucking release it?
Yeah. The Steve Reich didn't want anything for it, and then they arranged to give him, from like 98, they arranged to give him 20% of record sales or something, which is, and he never asked for it. They normally
come to some arrangement because it's easier than taking it to court and fighting it out. I mean, everything's easier settling out of court than going to all that rigmarole of losing it all with lawyers. So,
well, one of my favourite stories like that was this comedian Louis C.K. He's got a show called Louis. You know, it's kind of like half fiction sort of thing about his life. But the theme music for it is like Louis, 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 like Louis, 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 Louis. And he said, because I listened to him on a podcast, he said he wanted that song really badly for his show because it's perfect. And then, but the record label were basically saying, like, this is, like 50k or something ridiculous, like way too much money for him to be able to afford on his budget. So he lives in New York, so he just went, well, can I just get the guy who sang it's number? So he just got his number and said, if I give you like $1,000, will you just come and sing another version of it? And the guy just went, yeah, all right, I've got nothing else going on. So he just got it re-recorded for like 1,000th of the price of what he was being asked to record the actual song for, like to use the original song for.
You have to remember that all these fees are what the record company asks. So if you can go direct to the source, they're going to get 1% of the cut anyway, so you might as well give them 10% and they're happy.
100%. I just find it funny.
From talking about issues of songs sampling previous tracks, this next song is maybe unfortunately best known for a cover version. This is one of Dave's picks, and it's called 42.7. It is the original bootleg mix of You Got the Love by The Source, featuring Candy Staten.
You Got the Love, fuck.
It was really good, man. That was really, really good tune. I've never heard the longer version, that original mix, and it was, fantastic.
Well, obviously, it's been sampled from everybody throughout history, from Florence and Machine to all sorts of modern artists, and it's like a dance staple.
Yeah.
But yeah, the original is almost like it's a gospel track. It's religion based, basically. The original incarnation of it. But just a cracking vocal performance, a great melody progression, and when remixed into dance music, just like an uplifting dance floor church experience. Just awesome.
I'm really, really pleased this got so high, because as a Prosecco drinking single mum on the school run in my pyjamas, when it comes on the radio,
set is completed.
No, I'm joking aside, like, it is a fucking classic. It is a total, utter classic. You know when you're in love with someone and you know they've got control over your life, and you kind of go, well, I'm going to give you that control. It's like a beautiful song of, like, when you're in love with someone so deeply that you're happy to just let your fate be in their hands. That's what they've got.
Good intentions.
Yes, and they're going to look after you. You know it, and it's like this reciprocal love that you have between you and the other person. That song represents that so perfectly.
Relaxing into someone else's control that's got good intentions. So yeah, exactly. It's a warming.
Well, it's giving yourself entirely, isn't it? Over,
And also on a more global scale, it's kind of like going, well, let's all look after each other. One of the main themes I get from this song is like, we're all struggling. Let's help each other through whatever it is we're struggling through. It is a loved up song. It's about loving people.
It reflected the culture, really, isn't it? And that's why so much the gospel stuff translated to samples so well, because this culture is the same. you're looking to give over yourself entirely to Jesus or the church or whatever, and it's just almost the same as the metaphor's been drawn 9 million times before between church and raving.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen Human Traffic, they go on about it all the time.
What's remarkable about this song, though, is that the original disco track that Candy Staten was on was basically the background music to a documentary about some guy trying to lose weight. And so it was really obscure. Candy Staten didn't actually remember recording it or releasing it. And they picked out this really obscure piece of music she recorded for a documentary and put it over a Jamie Principle, Frankie Knuckles jam. It was a house song called Your Love. And they put it with that, and it became this other thing that's transcended to become one of the best singles ever released.
Yeah. Well, Knuckles recorded under so many flipping names, it was unbelievable back in the day. So it was kind of like the dance version of cover-ups, they called it, in the Northern Soul scene, where they deliberately cover-up labels and the same with hip-hop so other DJs wouldn't copy them. But yeah, Knuckles recorded under loads of different names. I can't remember off the top of my head, to be honest. But yeah, it was kind of like a protect your anonymity sort of vibe, like we were talking about earlier with Doom and Burial. But yeah, nice record, man.
At number 2, and this one may surprise a few people. This one is one of my picks. It scored 40.
That does surprise me.
It scored 43.1 points, and it is Michael Jackson's "Give In to Me" from Dangerous.
Yes. Ooh. Slash guitar solo. Fuck yes. That's why I got the score. That's why I got the score.
Dangerous is an album for me that I find too long, but does have several really good songs. I really love Remember the Time. I love this one. And I also nominated In the Closet, which I think is a really good club song. But Give In to Me has been proven here to be popular with people that aren't necessarily that heavily into Michael Jackson. And this is a surprise because it's an obscure single. It didn't do very well. But as Martin says, it does feature probably the best. Beat It is iconic in its appearance with Eddie Van Halen, as we discussed on the Thriller episode. But this appearance from Slash is something else. It gives it a raw... carrying on from what he was doing at the time with Guns N' Roses with November Rain, which didn't make the list, but it is in the top 150, and this is the same kind of he was bringing to his main band on a Michael Jackson song. The Eddie Van Halen song is iconic, but it doesn't go beyond the song. It very much is a part of Beat It. This feels like a Guns N' Roses song with Michael Jackson vocals. Different production, yeah, I'll give it that, but it's got an energy and a authenticity that a lot of Michael Jackson songs don't necessarily have when he tries the rock vibe.
I hate Guns N' Roses, really hate everything they've done so much that they would be in my top 5 bands that if I could wipe them off the face of the planet, I think the world would be a better place. However,
yeah, I think you're a bit wrong.
That's your opinion, man.
That's just like your opinion, man.
What's that from? Well, that's like your opinion, man.
Big Lebowski.
Oh, yeah.
I feel about Guns N' Roses. I hate Guns N' Roses more than Alex hated the Yonzi album he listened to in preparation for the 2020
That's not
episode.
Possible.
Yeah,
that
it
is not possible, Tom. You underestimate how much I loathed that shit.
I don't think it sounds remotely like a GNR track. I think the production on it is done so. It's the guitar playing is deliberately tight and punchy, and it deliberately much less loose. And I think that this is probably the most tasteful Slash has ever sounded on this record.
That's quite high praise. And going back to what Dan said, it's almost like with Beat It, Eddie Van Halen, it was like, oh, can you do a guitar solo? And he's like, yeah, I'll do a guitar solo, yeah.
Yeah, he knocks it out of the park, but he doesn't...
It's phoned in almost, and like,
yeah.
But with Give In To Me, it's like because the song is it's extremely emotional anyway. You know, without Slash, it's still a fucking great song. But Slash really dials in exactly what Michael Jackson was trying to say on guitar, if that makes sense. So the way I look at it is like Michael Jackson had this great fucking song. It is a great song. And Slash was like, I need to get into the emotional feeling of this song, man. And he totally did. And it's just, it's some of the best guitar playing I've ever heard in my life because it's so emotive and expressionable. It's just a good song, man. Like, but it is about Slash for me.
Michael Jackson has a trilogy of these records. So on Thriller, as we've discussed, we've got Beat It with Eddie Van Halen. On Bad, he kind of toned it down a bit, and it was Dirty Diana with Steve Stevens.
Steve Stevens from Billy Idol band.
Yeah, the third attempt at this kind of song is this, which is Give In To Me with Slash, and I think this is the pinnacle of Michael Jackson pop rock crossovers. This is, for me, the tour de force of what he was trying to do on each record. I think he got successively better at it. I think Dirty Diana is an improvement from Beat It, but I think
the single had this and those two tracks on the B.
Yeah, it's very much a trilogy of songs in that respect.
I think this is Michael Jackson's best song personally. I think it's fantastic.
It's up there,
but it wouldn't be as good if it didn't have Slash on the guitar. You know, it's like it's just so emotive. Like, and to hear Slash emotive, because he does emotive really well. He can knock it out of the park. Like, you know, it's like, oh, Slash, can you do a guitar solo? And you do a great one.
Hang on, let me go and find a deserted church to go and stand outside.
Yeah, or an ocean to stand inside. You know, like, but he just. On this track, you can tell he actually put his heart and soul into it. You can feel that he, like, when he was playing, he actually meant what he was doing, which he doesn't always do, you know, with Slash. It's like, sometimes he falls back on, like, his usual template thing. But with this, it's very melodic. It's, like, outside the blues scale. It's Mixolydian.
Minor, isn't it?
It's Mixolydian on this. It's fucking great.
Are we ready for number one?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not ready.
Strap yourself in, lads. No effects coming up.
No effects.
Our top song of 1991, with a total of 44.7 points, is one of Tom's picks, and it is The Magnificence of Unfinished Sympathy by Massive Attack.
Oh, yes.
I knew this one had to come.
This was one of my picks, and I gave it to you, Tom. I gave this pick to you, man.
Well, I picked this very early on, and both you and Dave tried to pick it afterwards, so I knew this was coming up somewhere. Like, this track is... Like, so it's Blue Lines, isn't it? 1991.
Yeah.
Blue Lines came out.
It's a great record.
It's a beautiful record.
It changed the face of electronic music. I think that's fair to say. Dave probably won't argue too much on that point.
No, that's banging. I bought Blue Lines the day it came out in the local Boots that I had, and it fucking rocked my world. So
there's some things I really love about this track. So it's the first thing that I really love is when you listen to most dance music from the early 90s, the loop of the chord sequence is 2, maybe 4 bars, whereas actually this is looping like a 16-bar sequence, so it goes through a lot more progression before it comes back to itself again, which gives it a much more sort of drawn out feel. I really like that, and it's much harder to write like that. Like, trying to write electronic music at the moment, writing anything more than a 4-bar loop is really, really tough to do. And they, on this particular track, they didn't fall back on having a rap in the middle of it, which was another thing that a lot of dance acts did. They didn't do that.
Oh, it so doesn't need it on this record.
No, the last thing it needs. If it had a rap track on it, it would have been, like, ruined.
I think it would destroy the subtlety of what they're actually doing.
That ever so subtle key change from the major to the minor about 3 minutes in is great, and then about 4 minutes in they have that nod to the other dance music of the era where they bring in the piano sound, because like there was a real thing, like a lot of Dave's picks for the 90s have that really obvious, really piano. Well, there's this,
Finally by CC Peniston.
Yeah, there's a really
which is a banger. By
Plinky Plonk Casio.
There's a piano sound. It's like a Casio sample piano
complex.
sound. Yeah, it's got no reverb on it, no sustain in the note at all.
Straight up.
And then Massive Attack use it, and they managed to make it not sound cheesy and rubbish like it does in most of the other dance music.
This is why I think Massive Attack are one of the most underrated bands of all time, because without Massive Attack you wouldn't have Radiohead, for instance. But why this song stands out is because like it is just anthemically beautiful in every single way. There's not one moment of that song where you go, oh, I would do that differently. You would go, I would do exactly that. It's just like the strings building and like you said, Tom, it doesn't have a normal song structure. It just kind of goes along. It starts.
Also, the song like goes off like a spider web.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, yes. What a great analogy.
With James DeVale and Mo Wax. It goes off with Tricky. It goes off to all the like trip hop subgenres. It spawns so many different things and influences so many different people, and is a real sort of Bristol fusion and a real homecoming for British music.
It's one of the most important songs ever written, in my opinion, because I think it pretty much invented a genre, which was that whole genre of like emotion in electronic music, but with lots of analog instruments happening and great arrangement. The arrangement is beautiful. Like Tom was saying earlier, it doesn't go that verse, chorus. It's like, it just builds. It starts and then it ends. It's like a journey. And you know the video where she's walking down the street?
Yeah.
Well, that mirrors the song. It's like, it's just a snapshot into life. And it's like, it's somebody going through, either they are going through a heartbreak where they've just lost someone, or they're going through a relationship difficulty. And the lyrics totally reflect it, where like they don't know whether the relationship is gonna carry on, and it's like that anxiety, that fucking, but also that kind of almost peace of going, well, you know, it's gonna not be a good thing, but I'm still gonna fucking feel something. And that's what really comes through for me, is like the feeling. It's like the emotion is there. It's not just, you know, the subject matter of, you know, a broken relationship, because that is what it's about. But it's like the feeling of it is just so pure. It's so like, her vocals are just like, she's heartbroken.
The whole album is up there with one of the greatest albums ever, and in British music it's probably in the top 50 or 20 albums.
I'd say it's in the top 10, man, to be honest with you. Like, it's so good. It's so groundbreaking. It's when Massive Attack came out in 1991, suddenly music changed. It was, I would say, Massive Attack's Blue Lines is equally as important as Nevermind by Nirvana, in the sense that like Nirvana did the guitar thing, you know, angry young white boys, but Massive Attack's Blue Lines did that whole like sensitive, you know, everyone else kind of.
It had the same impact on its genre, didn't it, really, that Nirvana had to rock music, you know?
For me, in terms of sonically, it's a distant cousin of Inner City Blues. It's the Inner City Blues, Make Me Wanna Holler, of the 90s, for me. In 71, Marvin Gaye sets out a sonic soundscape that sets a landscape for a lot of things to come in the 70s with Inner City Blues, and I think in the 90s Massive Attack do the same thing here,
just with a different subject matter, whereas Inner City Blues was about a social, like kind of a wider social kind of like injustice thing.
I just think there's similarities in terms of the songs. They're about a similar length.
Unfinished Sympathy is one of the most intimate songs ever written, because it doesn't sound like The Wider World. It sounds like you're in bed with your lover and you're not sure if you want to be with her anymore, and like, you know, and all that, and like you're not sure if the relationship is going to carry on. It's so intimate. It's so like it's about two people. I think Unfinished Sympathy is about two people. It's not about the wider world so much. It's about that love that two people can only have. You know, it's one of the most beautiful songs ever written, but it is literally about that intimate relationship that you have with someone. Yeah, how can you have a day without a night? It's just, the lyrics are just so fucking perfect. Her vocal delivery is perfect.
Yeah, Sharon Nelson.
The video goes hand in hand with it. It is so, like, it is so intimate. It's just like, it is you hugging your fucking, that one person that you've only ever loved in your life, and you know you're going to lose them. That is Unfinished Sympathy. It is mind-blowing. It is, and I think it deserves the spot of number one song of 1991.
Yeah, I think if you could, when we take the microscope at 91 and see, there's a lot going on, a lot of grunge sounds. There's a lot of great hip-hop in there. But I think this is a different beast altogether. And it's a worthy winner of the list, I think, because it's a beast.
And it's optimistic, because at the end of the day, it's like you see her at the end of the video and she's carrying on with her life, and you know she's going to find another love. And it's like kind of like you've lost that one, but there's going to be another one along sometime. And like going, you know, it ends with just this beautiful like sense of like optimism of, you know, you're going through some serious pain right now, but you're not going to be going through that pain forever. Just, man, I can't stop talking about this song because
you'd just be hard pressed to find anyone on planet Earth that doesn't think it's good. Like, it's one of those songs, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's what we call an undeniable banger.
If you do not like Unfinished Sympathy by Massive Attack, then you are a lizard alien from the planet Zarg.
Or Baphomet.
Or Baphomet.
That was our top 20 songs of 1991. The playlist is available on Spotify. It is available on Apple Music. We'll be sharing the list to those if you haven't already been listening along. Thanks very much for joining us. It's been an interesting exercise to do from a personal perspective. There's a lot of music that I've discovered through this, and we hope you have too. It's been fun and it's been informative, so we'll see you in the next episode. It's a goodbye from me, and it's a goodbye from everyone else, I presume.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay funky.